Now, the Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba says he does not feel that the odds are against him, as every country has its challenges. Minister Gigaba says the world economy is not growing as fast as it should. The Finance Minister will meet with the ratings agencies in the US. Our US correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, spoke to the minister.
Is up against you, or do you feel that you have the wind at your back?
Look, we've got the wind at our back. I don't think that the world is up against us. There are challenges that every country faces. The world economy is not growing as fast as it should, even though it is now on a growth trajectory. There are still risks in the outlook. But South Africa is part of a growing sub-Saharan Africa. We are part of a growing world. We are part of a growing G20. We belong in important institutions such as BRICS, the AU, as well as the G20, the IMF and World Bank Group. So we think that there are many possibilities for the South African economy to continue growing.
Given the difficulties that you've experienced since coming into this portfolio, that has been kind of the buffer for you, is that the global economy is set to grow by 3.5% this year, up to 3.6%. China is growing, commodity demand is up, the United States is growing. That does assist countries like South Africa, where trade is very important, does it not?
It does. There are concerns, of course, about tendencies towards greater protectionism in many countries, what is being discussed here as deglobalization. But we think that it's a positive environment of growth all over the world, and we are going to take full advantage of that. And that's why we are dedicating time to engaging with investors so that we can attract investments in South Africa, continue implementing structural reforms in our economy so that we can diversify it, transit it into new sectors such as the oceans economy, grow our SMME sector, continue to expand our manufacturing base so that we can increase our exports to the African continent, increase the numbers of young people that are employed. And I think that in implementing all of these programs and working together with business, labor, as well as civil society, we are communicating a positive message about the commitment of South Africa to work in collaboration, and we are portraying a South Africa Inc. approach which serves us well, which serves our economy well when we engage with investors and other people of influence.
You've said before your trip to the United States that South Africa's policy under your leadership is not going to change. Of course, this is a part of this exercise here in the United States is very much a PR exercise, talking to investors, talking to international policy stakeholders. How do you explain to them this notion of radical economic transformation in South Africa? Is this going to be a difficult sell, Minister?
Look, whether one talks radical economic transformation or inclusive growth, we are talking the same language. Right. At the heart of it is a genuine concern among South Africans that our economy is not creating jobs, that the levels of poverty are very high, there are too many people who are dependent on social grants, many of whom could be engaged in productive economic activities such as sustainable employment, and that the levels of poverty of inequality in South Africa are too deep. Now, that is the basis of our concern. And moving from there, we then say we need to industrialize the economy, to create to expand our manufacturing base by beneficiating the economy, creating an industrial base, leveraging the 1 trillion rand infrastructure investments to create competitive suppliers, to localize the economy, to ensure that there is a robust industrial program taking place in the country, supporting our SMME sector, ensuring that we develop the skills of our young people, and building the financial strength and developmental mandates of our state-owned companies so that they are able to fulfill their mandate in investing in infrastructure, crowding in the private sector in investments in infrastructure development, and providing such infrastructure as would help the economy to grow. This is what we are talking about. The language is the same. Now, there would be specific areas of debate that we keep on saying to investors, don't concern yourselves much about those issues, because We in South Africa are a democratic country. Like everywhere, there are different schools of thought in terms of economic policy. But where we stand, the fiscal policy remains intact. The budget framework adopted in 2017, February this year, remains intact. We are going to ensure that we don't spend money we don't have. We are committed to ensuring that we don't increase our debt levels, that we improve the management and governance of our state-owned companies, and we're committed to ensuring that we continue implementing the structural reforms in the economy that will help the South African economy to grow in an inclusive way, so that we can take into consideration and bring into economic activity those masses of the people who remain marginalized, who wish to participate in the economy, are not able to earn incomes. We are committed to implementing all of those programs, and that program of inclusive growth will be implemented within the fiscal framework that we have agreed to. As we grow the economy and create greater revenue, generate greater revenue, are able to invest to expand our fiscus into more areas of social and economic activity. We will be able to bring on board more and more people into the economy. But our singular focus at the present moment is ensuring that we drive the program of inclusive growth. We interact with the real economy interventions so that we can see that inclusive growth, and we manage our fiscus in a manner that is prudent and shows that level of discipline.
Let me ask you a final question, Minister. Policy, clearly your mantra is that policy is not going to change in the short term. Could it change in the medium to long term? The ANC has a policy conference coming up in June. There's an elective conference in December. Could things change dramatically after 6 to 12 months?
Look, I don't expect that there will be dramatic changes in the ANC policy. Whatever policy changes that take place at the ANC policy conference and the national conference are more likely to be in line with the policy decisions we've taken in the previous years. Remember that the ANC has been much stronger in taking policy decisions than in implementing them. The biggest concern among many people in the ANC today and among many South Africans, including the opposition, is the fact that those policies need to be accelerated. This is the biggest concern. This is what's going to be discussed. And I think that the National Conference of the ANC is going to look at all of these things in a very sober manner. When you go to the policy conference as well as the national conference, the ANC dedicates no less than 2 to 3 days in policy debates at commission level. And at the end of that process, we come out with sober policies that are not going to negate growth, that are not going to negate our desire for inclusive growth, and that are going to ensure that at the same time we seize advantage, we take full advantage of the strengths of our economy as we march forward into the future.
Malusi Gigaba, South Africa's Finance Minister, thank you very much indeed.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Straight off a plane and straight to the IMF here in Washington, Malusi Gigaba, South Africa's new Finance Minister, talking to us about his agenda at the IMF and the World Bank spring meetings. Of course, this is the first leg of his trip. He'll go and speak to ratings agencies in New York next week.